Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
It is time once again for us to have a bookish good time. This is Books That Make You, and I'm your host, Desiree Duffy. And today, we're talking about something that I absolutely love. Books that make you want to become a writer. You know, one of the great things about being a book lover is it often inspires us to become writers ourselves. You have this desire to put pen to paper and tell your own story and chronicle your own adventures and become an author. It's a way to secure a legacy and leave something behind. Writing a book, it can inspire and uplift others as well as entertain and teach them. There is magic in books, and wanting to become a magician, I think it's only natural. But the question is, where do you even start? How does one become a successful author, especially in today's competitive publishing industry? Well, Joan Gelfand is the person who knows. Her reviews, stories, and poetry have appeared in national and international literary journals and magazines. She's been in the Los Angeles Review of Books, Rattle, Prairie Schooner, and so many more. She's also had her work appear in the Chicken Soup books. Yeah, you know, the Chicken Soup for the Soul. She's been in Dreamers and the Unexplainable, as well as Dreams and Premonitions. That sounds fascinating. Joan is also the chair of the Women's National Book Association National Writing Contest. She's a member of the National Book Critics Circle and a juror for the Northern California Book Awards. And she also blogs for the Huffington Post, and she coaches writers. She's the recipient of over 20 different writing awards. And I am running out of breath. Joan, you are amazing. That is so much information. She is also the author of You Can Be a Winning Writer, The 4 C's Approach of Successful Authors, Craft, Commitment, Community, and Confidence from Mango Press. Joan, hi. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Desiree.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, so let me start with the big question. What is it about writing that compels us as human beings to want to do it? Because I know from experience, it's hard. It's like cutting open your wrists and bleeding on a page, and then you have people criticize your work, and all you're trying to do is share with them. Why would anybody want to torture themselves like that?
Well, as you know, if you've ever known a baby or a child, you know that people want to communicate with each other, and they want to connect. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, and I shouldn't say we want to be seen and heard. But I think what compels many writers that I talk to that go all the way to writing and finishing a book, right? Because there's a difference between, okay, I'm going to write a few blog posts or I'm going to write an article here or there, to actually finishing a book, is that their empathy for their subjects is very strong, meaning they have a topic where they've learned something that they feel is unique. Exactly the reason why I wrote the 4 C's approach to becoming a successful writer. I have a BA in creative writing. I have a master's in creative writing. Not one teacher ever talked to me about the things that are in this book. And so my feeling was, I'm doing this as a gift to the writing community. I'm going to share some secrets. And how many books that you've seen have in the title, The Secrets to a Great Financial Future, The Secrets to a Great Sex Life? It's like people just find a way of parsing or organizing the world, the chaos of the world, and they want to share it. They want to share it. I think it's really comes from empathy. Yeah.
And why is it? That's interesting that you have the degrees that you did, and you've taken all these classes from teachers and instructors, professionals who really should know. Why is it that you found something to share that they never touched on? Why wouldn't they help educate the future writers in that way?
In the past, you've heard the term the ivory tower.
Sure.
So when you went to school for your master's of fine arts, nobody wanted to, dirty the craft of writing and becoming an awesome writer with the nasty, nasty world of the business of writing. So that was one thing. Now that's starting to change. And I tell you, it is only in the last 5 to 10 years. It's really recent. Okay. That I think programs are starting to be pressed, to teach their students that it's not just writing a great poem or a great novel. You have to do a lot of other work to get your book published and become successful. So I think that's really, why I didn't learn it at that time. But also many writers, they're kind of out on the skinny branches, so to speak. So many writers don't go to creative writing programs, or they're not in academia. They have a story and they want to tell it, and they don't connect with other writers. And that's another thing that I talk a lot about in my book, is how important it is to find your people, that kind of thing,
Oh, absolutely. Okay, there is so much to unpack there. So yeah, let's talk about that, because I deal with a lot of writers too, and sometimes they feel, or they have this conception, that they're supposed to be off in a cabin in the woods all by themselves, and that's the writer's experience, and that's the only way they can do it. But having a writer's group, having other people that you can bounce ideas off of, beta readers, people that'll help you, that's really important, isn't it?
It's beyond important. I mean, my book talks about, the actual craft, and being alone is really just one aspect of becoming a writer. The others are developing your fan club. Who's going to buy your book beside your mother? I say this at every single workshop I give. You love your book, and maybe your mother loves your book, and maybe your best friend loves your book. But, we have to reach, and publishers and agents for sure are going to put your feet to the fire, so to speak, on you need to show up with, who is my audience? Who am I going to market this book to? What is my platform? And I tell people that includes, because people get overwhelmed, writers get overwhelmed. They're like, I don't have a fan club. You're like, did you go to high school? Did you ever work on a volunteer basis in any organization? Did you ever give anything to the community, your time and that kind of thing? And then people start to realize, oh, I have a platform. I have a community. My alumni association, my church or synagogue, there's a lot going on that people don't realize, where they can find their fans. But you also have to tell people, I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, I have actually been on the, on the program with two other poets, and I brought a handful of friends, and they didn't bring anyone. And I said, well, this is a reading and we have this great space. Why didn't you bring anyone? They're like, I'm too shy. I'm like, yeah, but you signed up to read. You've got to bring your people. So that's a short answer.
Oh, I love it. And I do want to take a deeper dive into the author platform and building your community and the audiences. First, I want to circle back, though, to that ivory tower comment that you made, because I think that's part of it, too. especially when we're talking, there's a big difference between literary fiction and genre fiction and things that are produced for the mass market. And I do feel that a lot of times people in the literary side of the community will turn up their noses at genre fiction because it tends to have a formula. It tends to be written with the idea of you're writing for the reader. You're writing for people who are fans of that genre, well, whether it be mystery or sci-fi or thrillers or whatever. Do you see that as being the case as well?
Absolutely. Well, I think now that another secret is out, which is that genre fiction actually gets placed and bought, and agents love it. It's kind of like, I think writers are starting to realize that if they want to build up their reputation, sometimes they'll start by writing something in a genre just to kind of get a foothold. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then a point that I wanted to make for your listeners, in case there's writers out there who are thinking of writing nonfiction books, which, is like a how-to book or, a memoir. These things sell 3 times as often as fiction. And genre fiction is placed probably twice as fast as literary fiction. Literary fiction that doesn't have a genre is really it's probably the biggest challenge in the commercial market. Yeah.
I agree. Now, let's talk a bit more about the craft of writing. What do you feel, a first-time author, somebody who's really raw and new to this, what do you want them to know starting out of the gate?
One of the tools that I teach to my, clients and students is I taught poetry for a long time because I started out as a poet. That the mechanics of writing a good poem totally apply to the mechanics of writing good prose. And so, there's like, I don't know whether I'm sure you have, but if you've heard of, you want to use your 5 senses. So you want to use sound, you want to use taste, you want to use touch, how things look, how they feel. So, when you're writing prose, don't neglect to put in the sense detail of where you are. If you're in a place, is it bright or is it muted? Is it cloudy or is it, overwhelmingly stark? What is it? And I think that if people start with that, like, oh, I'm using the really, really basic components of what it takes to construct good writing. And that is using the 5 senses right away. Of course, it's can you write a dramatic sentence? Do you have a sense of timing? Because, that's part of it. That's part of it. Just an artful sense of timing. Yeah.
What are the 4 C's of writing?
The 4 C's that are in my book are craft, commitment, community, and confidence. So craft, we're talking about a little bit here. Commitment, what that applies to is that writers, and I'm also going to venture out here, artists. The biggest kind of complaint I hear from agents or publishers or other professionals who are in the position to acquire these works is that people give up too easily. They give up too soon. They don't have the patience to work with an editor or do a revision. So commitment, I could talk about endlessly. So I'll just give you that little tidbit, and then it's up to you whether you want to explore that anymore. But I have a lot more to say on commitment. Community is encouraging writers, just as I said before, who's going to buy your book beside your mother. So it's like, who can I connect with in the literary community that is going to be there for me when my book is ready? So one thing writers often don't realize is that, your your idols and your icons, people, writers who you admire, they often can become your fans. You know, we're all so intimidated, but I always tell the story of Matt Damon, and, you know, his cohort, the one who always gets in trouble, the tall, dark one. I'm blanking on his name.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, Mr. Handsome. The story is, you know, these kids went to Harvard and they're like, we're going to be writers. And they wrote Good Will Hunting, and they just freaking pranced into Hollywood and started networking. And I mean, you can say, okay, these guys have a ton of gumption, but I mean, I'm sorry, the truth is, it takes gumption. And if you don't have gumption, you have to figure out how you're going to develop some gumption, because writers tend to be, you know, a little more on the socially retiring. They'd rather be home reading or writing than out hawking their own stuff. But the truth is, unless you do that these days, it's not going to happen for you. It's just part of the equation. It's really part of the math. Yeah.
So is this what you mean when you say that they should fire on all burners?
What I'm talking about when I say fire on all burners is person is writing, they're getting some encouragement, and they decide to get serious. They're like, okay, I have this, you know, enough poems for a book, or enough short stories for a book of short stories, or I have at least the draft of a novel. I'm going to get serious. What I'm talking about in firing on all burners is, while you're writing, go out, develop your community, work on your confidence issues, and commit to building up what I call in my book a writer's resume. Now, a writer's resume is basically the paragraph on your cover letter or query letter that says, I have been published in A, B, C, D, and E. Why? Because any publisher that's going to take your work loves to see that another editor has vetted you. So, you know, that's why getting these top publications, even though they're so challenging, is worth all your time and effort, because one publication in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Review, whatever, New York Times, New Yorker, one of those on your writer resume can catapult your career ahead. It's like winning the Academy Award. You know, people who win the Academy Award usually have a line of people out their door. And it's the same thing with building up your writer's resume. You know, how do you get those big name publications? Well, often the way that you do it is by getting small publications first. And so I really work with people to put the work out, get them in small publications, and then build their way up.
You are so right. It really is about making your net work. And I often have the bright-eyed, starry-eyed author come to me saying, here's my first book. By the way, my 8th grade English teacher was my editor, and she says it's awesome. How are you going to get me to the top of the New York Times bestsellers list? And they have absolutely no other writing experience. But to underscore what you said, by networking with others, by starting small, maybe do a short story and get it in an anthology, or get something published in a literary journal, and go out to conferences. There are so many great writers' conferences. I know my company, we do panels and we network at them, because you just never know who you're going to be sitting next to. And the great thing about writers who have made it, so many of them are willing to reach out and help new writers. And they're the ones who might be able to give you that blurb for the back of your book, to give you that endorsement, to give you writing tips, to introduce you to their literary agent or work with you. So I must emphasize everything that you said there, that, in having a big writing community and networking is just so important.
Very. And let's just also talk about the vicissitudes of what that takes. A lot of times what it takes to build up that fan club is putting yourself out in the community. And how do you put yourself out? Usually it's by volunteering. And I will tell you that there are some New York Times bestselling authors who are on the boards and who have volunteered for the Authors Guild, the National Book Critics Circle. They're out there. They're sitting there volunteering their time to be on the boards. And they're already best-selling authors because they still need to be in the literary world. They still need to show that they're not just sitting in their own ivory tower. And we all need to do that. I mean, the biggest leg up I've gotten in my career was by joining the Women's National Book Association. It's a national organization. I met people all over the country. I was a board member for 14 years. That's a lot of volunteer time and a lot of woman hours.
Yes.
But the truth is, I met a lot of my publishers through the Women's National Book Association.
And I must recommend them too. I'm a member in Southern California. Yes,
good.
I am. Yes, I am. And I worked with, actually, even today, they were looking for some authors to read at one of their events, and I recommended some of the authors that I have on my slate. So highly recommend them, and they're national too. So they're an organization where you can find a local chapter to connect with, and there are so many great organizations, whether it's a writers group or like the Greater Los Angeles Writers Society is another one here that's local. They're just all over the place. And don't forget about the conventions and the conferences that one can attend. You know, there's Comic-Con, which is great for anybody who's writing, obviously, comics, but screenwriters as well, anybody in the television or entertainment industry. There's virtually some kind of conference or convention or workshop everywhere in the world, I imagine.
Absolutely. And now these days, you can get the content online. There's all kinds of interesting things to do. And I mean, but showing up in person is just amazing. And one of the least expensive ones actually is the AWP, the Association of Writing Programs. And what a lot of beginning writers don't realize is that anybody is welcome at these. There's no credentials to be shown, and the panels are amazing. Anyway, lots of ways to get out there and meet people. Definitely, Desiree. Definitely.
And when it comes to building your fan base, you touched on that earlier, actually building an audience, having the ability to do that online is really powerful too, because we have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe more of the author platform building and getting yourself set up for your marketing?
I do want to talk about that, and I also want to just make a little side comment about something I heard at a conference once that has always stuck with me. There's a well-known national author named Lisa C., and I think her book was called The Shanghai Sisters. We might have to do a little fact checking there, but she was a keynote speaker, and her mother was a writer. She said, her mother said to her, be a friend to writers. When you're first starting out, be a friend to writers. And again, writers get stymied there. Well, I figured it out. What does that mean? Just what you're doing? Having a radio show, now I know who you are. I might put you in the next edition of You Can Be a Winning Writer.
Ooh, I love that. I love that.
Right? Because, you're enterprising and you're meeting writers by doing what you're doing. How else can you be a friend to writers? Run a series where you get to invite the writers that you really admire. Write a review of their book. Oh my God, they will love you forever. Write a review on Amazon, write a review on Goodreads, or write a review to send out to a national publication. My Los Angeles review writing credit was from a review I wrote of a poetry collection. Reviews are an excellent way to get your publication credits. How else can you be a friend to writers? So this is all building your platform, right? Because every time you do something nice for a writer, they're like, oh, I remember you. You wrote like that. And also, of course, going to author events, as I'm sure you will 100% agree with me, that showing up for an author's event, they will love you forever and kind of do reciprocity with you. If you ask them for a favor, they might be more willing to do it because they met you at their own event. Building a platform, there's many ways to skin a cat. Some authors get extremely lucky. I know an author here in the Bay Area. She wrote a Facebook post, and she had been writing and not really getting a lot of traction. Her Facebook post was on what I would tell my younger self. It went viral. She got a call from an agent. She got to write her next book. She got on some kind of TV show, and it's like so social media, let's just say it can be fickle, right? We don't know if our work is going to get the attention, and a lot of writers get extremely frustrated with social media because they're like, I did this, I did that, I did this, I didn't get any traction, nobody looked at my stuff. But you never know which post is going to be the one that people are going to look at. So social media definitely has to be in the mix. At the same time, meeting people, building your mailing list, going to the conferences, or, if you're an expert, speaking, capturing the names of people that you encounter and ask if you can add them to your mailing list. Always ask. I always ask, right? Is it okay? Would you like to? I don't spam. I only send out one newsletter a month. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll be on your newsletter. So all of a sudden, before you know, people are building up that names on their email list. Another thing, and this is something that a social media expert taught me, a lot of us think, well, if I just post on social media, I'm doing it, right? Like, leave me alone. But the truth is, it's an interactive conversation. It's not just your voice. So the truth is, really building a reputation on social media is about reading other things of interest, other tweets, other Facebook posts, liking things, sharing them, being a good social media citizen, not me, my book, right? It's got to be, oh, my book, but guess what? I read this other book, and that's really cool, too. And, oh, by the way, I wrote a review on Goodreads, and here it is.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan, by the way, of the hashtag writing community or writers community, mostly on Twitter. And it's like, this is my tribe. We're all there having conversations, whether we're looking for suggestions or advice, helping each other name characters in our book, sharing reviews, sharing accomplishments, sharing defeats. And you are so right, because this community that you create, you're all in the same boat, and you'll help and support one another, especially when it comes time for you to launch that book.
Absolutely. I had a encounter with a colleague at a professional event, and I was friendly with her up until that point, and I saw her and I said, oh, did you see my postcard? She said, oh, yeah, I don't have time for that. Literally said that. And I wrote her an email and I said, you get ready to launch your book, you're going to want to have a lot of friends in the literary community. So like what just happened between us, you might want to rethink that. I literally did that because I felt like I was doing her a favor, actually. Don't treat other writers cavalierly or brush them off because you're only interested in your own project. Because when your project comes up, if you've been a team player, you're going to get a lot more help.
And your book, again, it's simply amazing. It's such a great resource for writers. Again, the name is You Can Be a Winning Writer, The 4 C's Approach of Successful Authors, Craft, Commitment, Community, and Confidence. And can you tell people where people can find it online, bookstores, and where they can find you as well, social media, etc.?
The book is widely available, so you can ask your librarian to order it. That's my mission of the year, is to get as many into libraries as possible. We're starting on that. Of course, it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and in independent bookstores. If you go into your independent bookstore and it doesn't have the book on the shelf, they can order it for you through their distribution network. I'm on social media. I'm really easy to find. I don't have any secret names. Joan Gelfand everywhere, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's all the same. LinkedIn, Joan Gelfand. And I'm lucky because not a lot of people have my name, so I didn't have to make up a crazy name. And then my website is just http://joangelfand.com.
Perfect. Joan, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you today. I'm glad that we connected. My name is Desiree Duffy, and thank you everyone for being with us today on Books That Make You. And you can find out more on our website. That's booksthatmakeyou.com. Follow us. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And until next time, please, my friends, enjoy all of the books that make you who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.